Hello, my name is Rachel and I'm here today to talk about my TBR for the month of Victober, which is a readathon that takes place over the month of October where we read like Victorian literature. So this is hosted by Ange from Beyond the Pages, Katie from Books and Things, Kate from Kate How, and Lucy from Lucy the Reader. And yeah, it's all about reading Victorian books, which is anything published between 1837 and 1901. I took part this year and had so much fun, and even though it was like so fun and enjoyable, I actually think this year is going to be a hell of a lot better because I've read a lot more classics this year and I just feel a lot more comfortable with classics. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the challenges first because this is kind of an all over the place TBR, so I'm just going to start with the challenges and then just like work things in, kind of, I don't know. Okay, so the first challenge is from Ange and it is to read a book by one of the host's favourite Victorian authors. So these are Charlotte Bronte, Dickens, Elizabeth Gaskell and Thomas Hardy. So I'm picking Thomas Hardy just because I've read two Thomas Hardys now. I've read Tess the Devils and Far from the Madding Crowd, and Far from the Madding Crowd is one of my favourite Victorian books that I've ever read. It's especially one of my favourite characters I've ever found in a Victorian book is 100% Bathsheba Everdeen. So that book has really stuck with me and I'm really hoping to continue with my Thomas Hardy journey. I do want to try and watch as well the adaptation of Far from the Madding Crowd because I never watched it when it first came out because I was waiting to read the book, and I read the book last year for Victober and still haven't seen the film. So I'm hoping to get to the film in the month of October. And then the two Thomas Hardy books that I have to choose from are To Anatawa and The Mayor of Casterbridge. Now I am leaning towards The Mayor of Casterbridge because it sounds amazing. So these are both the beautiful Penguin English Library editions, and with this one, this is about a man who gets really drunk and gets really angry and sells his wife and child to someone, and then he moves on to become this like person in the community that everyone relies on and everyone trusts. And I think that, you know, act comes back to haunt him. It sounds very Scarlet Letter-esque in the way that like we have this man who becomes everything to this community and then a mother and her child come back to destroy everything. So this one sounds really good. To Anatawa is published in 1882, and with this one we follow Lady Constantine, I think she's called, and she goes against the social order when she decides to try to marry a man who is socially inferior and 10 years younger than her. So this just sounds like really interesting to me, so I think this one would be a good one too. So I'm going to read one of those, but as of yet I'm not sure which one it's going to be. The next challenge is Kate's, and it's to read a Victorian book with a proper noun like a place or a name that is in the title. And for this I'm going to read The Picture of Dorian Gray. So I started reading this last year and then I went and visited home in England and left the book in England, and so I couldn't read it. But I was really enjoying it. It's a really well written and like philosophical based type of book, and I was really enjoying that. And so I'm really hoping to get back into it, and I think I'm going to really enjoy it because I was looking on Audible for Victorian books to get for Victober, and it had Dorian Gray being read by Stephen Fry, and so like I love Stephen Fry, that's right up my alley. I'm gonna love listening to that, so I'm definitely going to be reading Dorian Gray this month. Dorian Gray was actually published in 1890, so it really like goes right up to the edge of the Victorian period, and when it was published the editor of the magazine took loads of stuff out of it because he said it was a bit too risque, so he took that stuff out without telling Oscar Wilde, and Oscar Wilde lengthened and revised it and brought it out again in 1891. So it's got quite an interesting story behind it, and it'll be interesting to see which one I'm reading. I do want to read the full version because apparently there is a full version that was published in 2011, so that would be really interesting to get my hands on. That's what I'm hoping to read for that challenge. Then number 3 is Katie's challenge, and this is to read a book from the first 10 years of the Victorian period and or a book from the last 10 years of the Victorian period. So I'm going to pick the latter, and this is 1891 to 1901, and I'm going to be picking War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells because I have it at home and I'm going home in October because it's my birthday, so I'm definitely going to be picking that up. And I was really surprised to hear it was a Victorian book actually. I didn't think it was Victorian. It comes to mind more of like a modern classic than it does a Victorian, so I was quite surprised. But I wanted to pick that one up for ages and ages and ages, and I just think it would be a really good like thing to read in between, because I think it's a classic, but it's less of like the literary classic. It's more like a fun sci-fi type classic, so I think it'll be good to like mix things up while I'm reading. So I'm definitely hoping to get to that one. Then Lucy's challenge is to read a book that is written by a woman anonymously or under a pseudonym, and for this I'm going to choose Silas Marner by George Eliot. This was published in 1861, and the actual woman who wrote this is Mary Ann Evans. She used the pseudonym George Eliot for everything she published, I think. And again, I started reading this already, and I was listening to the audiobook and just really wanted to be reading a physical copy, so I'm really excited to pick this back up because I was enjoying it so much. Gonna hope to get back into this one. And finally, the last book I have is the group challenge, which is to read a book and then watch the screen adaptation of it. So I'm hoping to read North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell and then to watch the TV BBC adaptation, because I always hear about it, and I do have the DVDs at home and I've never watched them because I've always wanted to read it first. So I'm very excited to be able to pick this up and then watch that. This book follows Margaret Hale, and she is from the South. Her family decide to move north and they live in an industrial town called Milton, I think it is. And I think basically she ends up discussing the rights of the workers and poverty and all of this stuff, and the man who owns one of the mills, John Thornton I think he's called, is sort of her opposite and the one that she's arguing with about it. I wanted to read this for ages. It really sounds like Pride and Prejudice crossed with Hard Times by Charles Dickens, which they are two of my favourite classics, so I definitely think I'm really going to enjoy this one. I just finished reading Pride and Prejudice today and I've literally eaten it up. I think I've read it in 3 or 4 days, I can't remember, which is just like, I don't read classics that fast, but I literally was just like, oh my god. So I'm definitely in the mood for another book like that, and I have heard this compared to Pride and Prejudice quite a few times. I'm really excited for this one, and I think I'm going to really enjoy it. That's everything I'm hoping to read for Victober. I'm also hoping to watch the Jane Eyre BBC series, because I've only watched it once when it first came out, and then I read Jane Eyre last year and bought the DVD, and I was like, I really want to watch it again, and then just haven't. So I really want to get to that in the month of Victober. I want to watch that, Far from the Madding Crowd, North and South, and then the only other thing that I'm hoping to get to is that I still have Great Expectations that I've not finished, which I've been reading since last Victober now. I put it down because I can't stand child narrators. Like, I think that's what it is. I've definitely hit the nail on the head with that. I don't like the beginning of Jane Eyre. I'm scared of reading Oliver Twist because I always think, I don't think I'm gonna like the narrator. Don't like child narrators. Didn't get into Agnes Grey for a little bit because they were kids. I don't like child narrators, so I think that's been my biggest issue with Great Expectations. But Pip's grown up now. Like, I'm at part 2 and he's grown up, so I should be fine. I should be fine to pick this up and just read it now he's not a child. So I definitely do want to get back to this, and that's one of the reasons that I haven't picked that many books. I've only got 5 or 6 books that I've actually chosen to read for Victober, because although I have more Victorian books here and I hope to pick up more, I actually just really want to concentrate on the ones that I've picked, because they're all books that I really want to get to in the month of Victober. So yeah, definitely hoping to read all them. So yes, these are all the books that I'm hoping to read in the month of Victober, as well as Dorian Gray on audiobook. If you are taking part in Victober, please let me know down below what you're planning on reading, or if you've made a video like this, link it down below so I can go watch it, because Victober's so fun. I'm hoping to make a video on like my favourite Victorian books at some point in the month of October, because I'll be home as well, so I'll be home with my books and I can look at them all and decide. So that would be really fun. And yeah, apart from that, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!